So in the last video at the end I said that next we're going to deal with the detecting of matches. I'm actually going to put that off for one more video because I realized that we had to build on what we finished up last video, and that is the spawning of new crystals when the old ones are destroyed. So currently in the game flow area, we have in the update section, if this variable is set to a number other than 10, so the value of the current gem that was just destroyed, we instantiate this, but it's always red. So this won't take long, but basically what we're going to do is we pretty much have to copy and paste the whole random approach into here. We really can't repurpose this one because we're not looking at row number or column number. Those have already been done. So really what we want to do is, not to mention this is in the start section. You can't go back to the start section. So for a couple reasons, we can't just use this. We can copy and paste it, and really, even though it looks redundant, it's not any kind of major impact on performance. Adding a few lines of code adds a negligible amount of memory to the game. So I don't actually want to copy this though because there's just too many things we have to replace. I'll copy just this one line because we're using the same range of colors. So once again, you have which gem, this variable, is set to a random number between 1 and 6. Now what we want to do is we want to not just instantiate this, we want a decision as to which one we're going to instantiate. So if which gem equals 1, then we want to instantiate a certain color. Now, I just want to point out that you absolutely do not have to use the same colors here. So if you want to make them match up, that's fine, but you really don't have to. The key was that you don't repeat, like 1 isn't red and 2 isn't, that 1 and 2 aren't both red, that each one represents a different one. And the only reason why we did greater than here is because, as I've said, that top number is not inclusive. So now you can just really copy and paste these. And again, the key is that this doesn't have to match this as long as you don't repeat in here. So 1 is red orb, 2 is whatever blue orb. And also change, actually I think I said blue orb, meant blue object. So equals 1 equals 2 equals 3, green, four, yellow, and I'm not really going through this in detail because, as I've mentioned before, a lot of times you'll come up with a routine and then it's just rinse and repeat. You're just reusing that same principle. That's why I'm going through this rather quickly. We already did a thorough explanation of the way instantiate works. So now this is just rinse and repeat. All right, that should cover, whoops, we didn't type that right. And this one needs to be orange. All right, so let's do that first. Let's see if that's working. Typo there. So we'll destroy random one, and came out blue instead of red. Green, green, red, yellow, yellow, orange. Okay, so that works as intended. So now when a gem is instantiated, it is randomized just like the initial gems are randomized. So that was the first thing I wanted to clean up in this one. The second thing is I wanted to actually start putting some of the counters on the screen, seeing as that it's directly related to what we're doing. So in gem control, on mouse down is where you destroy the gem that you've selected. So this is where you should minus a turn. So let's go back to game flow, and we'll do public static int, and it's going to be remaining turns, and we'll just whatever start it at 40. Now what we do is, since it's static, we can access it here. So on mouse down, if this value is not set to no, then it go ahead and actually does the destruction of the gem. So now what we're going to do is we'll also add game flow dot remaining turns plus equals 1. Oops, I'm sorry, minus equals 1. So gameflow.remaining turns minus equals 1. So take this variable that is declared in this script, take whatever it is equal to, and subtract 1 from it. Okay, so now that we've minused that, we now need to do something with that value. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an object for the score. Now, it's been mentioned to me that the new UI is preferable to using what I use, which are text meshes. They haven't removed the text meshes from Unity, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep using them for now, but I might at some point do a tutorial about using the new UI. I just haven't delved into it now because I've always done it manually. So let's do create empty, add mesh, text mesh. We don't have to put, well, we'll put in a test here just so we can see its size and alignment. All right, so we want this to be at 0, so it's lined up with the base itself. We want this to be like -4. Actually, no, that's overlapping, so like -6 then. And this needs to be towards the top, so I believe that should also be 6-ish. So probably a good time to rotate the camera. Sometimes I don't bother, but something like this when we're lining something up, there's nothing wrong with using the, for want of a better term, the director's camera. One of the reasons why I don't is you can just click on the camera and see how it looks. But, all right, so now let's take this and move it over a bit. Let's shrink that character size so it's not blurry. Let's choose a font. Oops. Choose font, Arial, font size, let's make this like 44. Okay, so that actually could push over to the left some more. It's about right. I suppose we could do a -10 even, although something like this, its exact alignment isn't that big of a deal. And we'll just bump it up a little bit. Okay, so now we can erase the text because a script is actually going to decide what the text is. So, few ways to do this. We can either add a variable to the GM, attach the text object to that variable, and then the GM can manipulate it. Or we can just add a script right to this. So 6 one way, 1/2 dozen the other. Let's call this turns text. And I think we'll just create its own script. And we'll call this text control. Click on turns text. Attach it, and there's really only going to be one thing in this at the moment. It's simply going to, in the update section, get component. Oops. So get component, what component? Well, we want the text mesh that we attach to this. Okay, well, what part of it? We want the text field. All right, what do we want to do? We want to have it be turns, and then the plus sign, and we want it to be that variable. So game flow dot remaining turns. So this is what's known as a concatenated field, where you're taking two different values and you're putting them together. Not addition, like when you're adding two numbers together. This is where you're basically turning it into a string. In some versions, this would have to be converted to a string because it's a number. Let's see if it forces us to do that. It does not. So I think it was in Unity 4.6 where you'd actually get an error message and you'd have to append .toString parentheses to make it convert. So now that number should change. There we go. And then the next thing you would do is that if you have no turns left, then this would go into some kind of when turns equals 0, there would be some kind of it checks obviously to see if you've met your goal. If you haven't, then it would go to some kind of game over screen, but we can handle that in a different video. So I think we accomplished everything that we wanted to in this video. We randomized the cubes that are being generated, and now we've put in a counter for the turns, and now, like I said, we can then limit that. Okay, we'll save any kind of game over or, checking of the turns into the very end. So I think that's it for this video.